I'm here with Enpei Lam. Enpei, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you, Al?
I'm doing real well, and we were just talking, and you had shared that you were going to be in Hong Kong. However, you're not quite there yet. You want to share where you're joining us from?
Well, I'm right now in Bangkok, Thailand. Is quite a bit of journey to travel to Hong Kong. I originally live in Los Angeles, and U.S. unfortunately was one of those 9 countries that Hong Kong doesn't welcome. So I would have to travel to another country, get washed out for 14 days before going there. Yet the policy has just changed, so it changes every day. But long story short, I'm supposed to be in Hong Kong in the quarantine hotel today at this moment, but I'm not because my flight got canceled. And but here I am. In
Here you are. You still held true and joined us. So thank you for doing that. I was like, all right, hey, we can push, but thank you for showing up as you've done. So,
my
hey, we're
pleasure.
going to
Yeah.
talk about turnover analysis today. But before we do you mind introducing yourself and a little bit about who you are and your background?
Of course, again, my name is Enpei Lam. I currently lead the global people analytics and planning function for Cushman and Wakefield, a commercial real estate company. It happens we have an office here as well in Bangkok, Thailand, and I've got the pleasure to meet with the colleagues over here as well as I'm washing out. So, been with the company a little bit more than 6 months now, although it feels like quite a long time. Really building up the function here for the company, having a lot of fun. And prior to here, I was with Aon, was a consultant doing the same thing, people analytics and people planning. And prior to that, I was with Kaiser Permanente and integrated healthcare system. So
So you've been doing this a while, in other words, and
for a
I'm
while.
really interested in where you believe we are with turnover analysis, because obviously with the Great Resignation, all that's happening with certain job families in particular, that hey, there's a scarce amount of talent. There's more demand than there is supply of talent, so you have to be very specific on where you're going to put your dollars to retain people, particularly those who are what I would call key contributors. Uh, how about just introduce what turnover analysis not only is to you, but why are you doing it? What's the purpose? Who's your audience for it?
The audience of the leaders, the audience are the every single manager in the company who's feeling the pain of losing their staff. So the great resignation is true, it's real, and it's still happening. I think the pain is a little bit better now, but it's still there. It still lingers. My colleagues are still leaving the company, and you look to the left and the right. There's somebody leaving. This week or past week. So it's still out there. I mean, it's getting a little better, but it's still out there. And when I joined the company 6-7 months ago, this is the number one headache of all of the leaders, not just the chief people officer, but all the business leaders up to the CEO. They want to figure out why are people leaving. Is it just because the pay? Is it because they're not happy with their bosses? Is it because they're not happy with their work? What is going on, and how can we alleviate it? Right? How can we improve it and get better? If it's the money, how much dollars that we need to throw out in order to keep the people? Is it because of something else? Can we do something about it? I mean, and we can get into the detail a little better, but my task was to really figure out the root cause, right? Of all these reasons, why are we losing our people, right? And get to the root of it, and then we can come up with retention strategy. We can come up with programs to keep our talents.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. As I'm smiling inside because I see so many organizations putting together retention strategies and priorities and budget based on what they read in the magazine, what they read in the popular press, and what they see on LinkedIn. And while there are certainly leading practices that can be considered, unless you understand the people within the system for which you're responsible at that point in time, you're really just guessing. And
Right.
so that's where I really celebrate what you are bringing to the fore. And I know you have the scope and methodology that you'd like to share. You want to jump into that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, are we sharing this? Okay, there you go. Great. This is new technology, Al, by the way. I'm very impressed with what you have, to do
Uh,
this live.
I'm trying.
So the scope, and the scope and the goal, was just what I mentioned. Turnover is a huge problem and headache for my company and just as many other companies because we're losing people left and right. And we really want to dig into the root cause. Most of the companies will have exit interviews, just like Cushman and Wakefield. We also have exit interviews. The response rate is, however, usually pretty low, and if you look at the answers and the survey, it's self-reported, right? So you can't really get to the weed of it. And another challenge that exit interview that has is self-reported, right? So it's not based on fact or true data. It's based on perspective. And if you read into each of the responses, there might be conflicts and stuff like that. So what I figure what we can do better is we can dig into the true data, right? Look into we use Workday, look into our data from Workday, look into multiple sources. We have engagement survey. We use workplace analytics from Microsoft. So all these data put together, we have about more than 130 data attributes, and bring into this machine learning algorithm to figure out what is really the number one, two, three factors driving people out, right? And we have a global company, so we have pretty good data records to play with. So we've included more than 66,000 global employee records, including all countries, service line, and focusing on really the Great Resignation time period, right? To understand why are people leaving.
With that in mind, the first thing that jumps out, 130 attributes in multiple systems, it's very easy for people to just get overwhelmed. And I've seen, the overwhelm look and behaviors of, okay, we're not there yet. We can't do that. We don't have the resources. We don't have the expertise. We don't have the required technologies. What do you say to those? Because obviously, leaders there at Cushman Wakefield said this is a priority. They've hired you to either enhance the capability that was formerly there or create it from scratch. But really, how accessible is it to you? How difficult? Is it a heavy lift? Is it a moderate lift? And what technologies do you use to help get this work done?
Yeah, and there are a lot of data. So most of the people would challenge their company's data. Cushman
Mhm.
is no exception. So a lot of colleagues are like, well, you want to do this, the data is not clean. But through my experience, and actually from my experience from Aon, looking at a lot of different clients' company data, yeah, none of them are perfectly 90% clean, but most of them have good enough data for you to work with, right? So you have to make assumptions, you have to make imputation before making it work. And I'm grateful to have a team. If I can mention their name, John and Stephen and Corbin, they all help me with cleaning up the data and designing the model and the technique to combine all these 130 data attributes coming from different data sources. Running the model is actually not that laborious. I mean, it's the design and also the massaging, the merging, and bringing the data together. That could be pretty laborious. So we put them together in Python. So that's the tool that we use, and create a data process to clean the data and then design the model and borrow. Python has great data modeling libraries that you can just download and install, and then you can just use those libraries, run the script, then you have all your data run into the model and then come up with the results. So
Well, yeah, I want to get into the modeling in a second, but first, I'm really taken by the attributes. 130 attributes. I'm gonna bring up that slide. Do you mind talking to these and how you brought these together and how you decided on that these were the appropriate ones?
yeah, so I mean, we do, we try to take whatever we have, right, as much as possible. We don't try to invent anything that we don't have, unless it's super crucial, right? So and all the like normal suspect that you will have, in a data analytics or people analytics world that you think about, right? Gender, ethnicity, experience, tenure, performance rating, span of control. So all these are pretty basic or fundamental core data attributes that we think it will have an impact on turnover. Is really more like common sense, right? People who tend to get stuck in a position might tend to leave. More likely to leave than the others. We also found that married couple may tend to stick a little longer than single employees. So, and of course, compensation, engagement, workforce analytics, and all these data that we can bring in. Some of them are pretty interesting, actually. When we look at it, when we look at the result, some of them are pretty typical, right? But still, what the model can do the best is it tells us which will be the highest ranked or will be the most impactful that drive turnover.
Yeah, so one of the things that I am obviously, not obviously, but I'm gonna go to the actual modeling technique that you've used is that people analytics professionals, those who know varying analytical techniques, need to choose wisely and apply the one that's most appropriate given the problem you're trying to solve. And so you called out your colleagues. So it's one thing to have the attributes; it's another thing to apply the appropriate model. And correct me if I'm wrong, you also have to learn what data you're lacking that maybe might enhance the story over time. So you might go create new data or find new data. Is that part of your process as well?
Yeah, definitely. Um, just for example, right? So there are data that don't exist in the data warehouse, right? So you will have to create or create new fields or create an index in order to bring them into the model. Say promotion, lateral transfer, and I mean, even for tenure, right? I mean, we will have date of hire, but you really have to measure it from that date of hire to today in order to come up with a year mark, right? So how many years that the person has been within the company, or the last, you have to look at the last change of the person's job role to today's, so how long that person has stayed in the role for, right? So there are a lot of, that's why I was saying that doing the data cleaning and prepping, that could be a lot more laborious than running the model, because to your point, you have to really create or calculate some fields, right, in order to bring them into the modeling.
Well, what model did you choose here? Do you want to describe this?
So this is called a category boost gradient classifier in Lam. What we simplify it as a cat boost machine learning model. What it does is it actually takes in all those 100, for our cases, taking all those 130 attributes, and they will convert the categorical attributes into numeric. So things such as like business categories, department, and things like that, they would turn it into numeric, before running the model. And that's important because a lot of models such as linear regression, they don't really turn those categorical into numeric. So this would do the trick on its own. And what it does is it learns multiple or numerous decision tree type of model or attributes, right? To figure out which attribute would be the most important factor that is driving turnover, right? Attribute like tenure, experience, or department, business category, geography, right? All these will be all of these factor will have its own decision tree, and we'll see, hey, if this person is from California, did he terminate or not, right? If he didn't terminate, how was his performance rating? Was it high, low, medium, right? And if it's a high performers, did he leave or not, right? So all these decision tree will be learned and iterated in this model to come up with the result that would need, which is to rank which would be the number one factor, number 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? Root causes of turnover.
Now, is this being run continuously, or is it done on an ongoing, recurring basis?
This could be run, you can set it either way, right? So what we do is we run a first pass, and then we use the data, we use the time frame of the data that we scoped out, and then ran it in order to figure out, hey, what's the most up-to-date root causes of turnover, right? And in 3 month time, 6 month time, we can definitely refresh this and see, what's the change. I mean, definitely not daily, because what's the most important factor today will probably be the same most important factor tomorrow. This is not like stock pricing, right? So
right. Just to geek out with you a little bit on this, is this agent-based modeling, or do you actually have people that the people are in this model?
This is people. This is using the actual employee by employee level data. So I think to elaborate your question is that it's possible to do a reverse analysis to figure out each of the person's turnover risk. And that's actually what we're doing as we speak now. So we can use the finding and the result of this model to kind of look at, hey, what is the turnover risk for Enpei, right? Based on all these findings.
And so that's going to invite the question, who does this go to? Does it actually go to the individual's immediate manager?
It could. So what we have presented to is most of the top executive leaders, right? And we broke it down by different business lines and different geography, depending on the structure of the company. So they know under their umbrella, what are the main reasons people are leaving, and how can they prevent and avoid it. So.
Right. And in that case, is it the case where they actually know the individual person and have a discussion with them? Or is it more, okay, this is generally the theme in my group, and therefore I need to pay more attention to, I don't know, hybrid work or some other factor?
So they're twofold, right? On the high level, we give them the reasons why people are leaving, which I can share in a little bit. And one of the most important reasons for Cushman and Wakefield is internal mobility. So for most of the regions and business lines, internal mobility continues to show up as the number one reason why people are leaving. And in fact, the model can tell us, how many years a person has been doing in the same role are a lot more likely to leave, right? If I can share, so for our analysis, most of the places that we have seen is 2 years. So if a person has continued to do the same thing for 2 years, that person's likelihood to leave is going to be a lot higher than those who have switched role during the past 2 years, right? So that's one fold, right? And then so as we do drill down to the individual, we can, what we're trying to create is a roster, right? And give it to the managers and have the managers look at it and identify who are the high risk individuals who might be leaving, and what was first of all, are they if they're high risk, right? Are they high potential? Are they high performing individuals, right? If they are, what would be the retention strategy that you would want to come up with, right? We on the record, you can show their previous promotion date, previous merit increase, how much was it, bonus, and all that, right? So the manager can make adjustment if they decide to retain them.
Yeah, I smile because having done similar work 20 years ago, and almost like 20 years ago, like to the day, it feels like, it was the same analysis that came out of the Corporate Leadership Council, is that high performers with less than 2 years tenure, they tended to be disengaged after that point. The narrative that ensued after at least the exploratory discussion was that, well, everybody wants that because you have your first year where you're kind of learning the job, and then
Yep.
you get performance targets put next to you, and now there's no other place to hide. So at the end of year 2, it's like a heightened level of accountability and
Right.
expectations, arguably. So are those the types of discussions that are you all are having now? It's like, yes, there's the needs of the worker to have opportunity and grow, but there's the needs of the business to have certain things done and contributions made, and finding that balance. Is that?
Yeah, definitely. So we even provided some metrics or some percentage change from the current state, right? So say, for current, what is the current promotion rate? What is the current lateral transfer rate, right?
Mhm.
And if you are to reduce turnover by how many percent, you have to boost your promotion rate by how many percent? You have to boost your lateral transfer rate by how many percent? Then you can achieve the goal of reducing turnover. That's what the model can tell us, right? And
Wow.
I mean that's the number. But the hard part is how do we implement programs and stuff, right? And then to enhance promotion and then to encourage lateral transfer, right? So that's the human part, the soft skill that needs to be built in order to make it happen.
Well,
So
oh, you go ahead. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
no. So I mean, so that's what that's what basically where my work in, and I pass it on to my colleague
Yeah. Well,
to
that's
program.
actually where I wanted to go, because I asked you at the outset, who's the audience for this, and you mentioned managers and everybody, and I get it, because it is a systematic viewpoint that has to be had when you talk about the employee experience. Where are these moments that matter? Where are these decisions leaders are making? How are they impacting employees in the workforce? So what's the governance now to consume your insight and in turn take appropriate action? Is that evolving, or did you enter into a mature process already?
No, this is still in development. So the report that you're looking at today is fresh off the press. So it's almost a month old, and it still continue to be socialized among leaders and decision makers. So so we're not really there yet at developing programs to enhance those internal mobility, but we are on the track for it.
Outstanding. I have no idea what happened, but I vanished and came back, so I feel like I have a superpower there. So,
Good job.
so I do not know if the question came through. Is really the governance process. Who is in the room, either immediately or downstream, because to solve for this internal mobility, compensation, communications, learning, all that, have to kind of think together how they're impacting the employee experience. So is that process mature, like in terms of the governance and taking the insight that you have and making systematic decisions, or is that something that's just now evolving given the level of insight you're able to generate?
Yeah, it's evolving. Is I will say it's in the baby period, right? So we're still building it out. Um, of course, but this report has been discussed multiple times with different parties, our talent management, our compensation, our recruitment, right, and all of them have to get involved and kind of have a voice and say, hey, what could we do? So if my model is proposing a 5% jump for everybody, is it sustainable? Right? Compensation, finance have to make a decision. Well, maybe not 5%. Maybe we can give them 3%. Then how much turnover will decrease instead. Say if we give out 5%, turnover come down by 10%, just making it up, right? But now we only have the money for 3%. Then we're looking at turnover coming down by 5 or 6%. So there's a lot of give and take, right? And negotiation and discussion with different parties to make things happen. So
Got it. And do you all have a workforce planning capability? Do you call it that? If so, or is it something similar but different?
yes, but I'll say it's pretty ad hoc. So it's I would say that a company tries to be proactive, but at the moment we are still in the pretty much reactive phase, right? So when like turnover, huge problem, right? So we're reacting to it.
Got it.
We designed this. We look into we design this analysis. We look into the issue. We look into the challenges. Then we come up with recommendations and solutions. Get a group together to figure out how do we tackle it. So
Got it. Yeah, because it sounds like, and again, I'm putting my own narrative over this shamelessly, is that I've seen organizations do, workforce planning, formulate retention strategies in either a process-centric approach or a data or insight-centric approach. And it sounds like you all are generating the insight, and now you're going to figure out, how to use it downstream. Like, okay, we're going to talk about this and we're going to identify a problem, and then we're going to go source the data and insight that we need to solve that problem. There's no judgment either way, because some people can't get their heads around it, until they can actually see it, and
right.
now we can use that to do that. So that sounds like what you all are doing. And obviously,
and what I appreciate and I'm grateful about Cushman and Wakefield is that the leaders are really data heavy and they're very data driven, right? So they believe in looking at the analysis and looking at the fact-based results before making any decision. So it's not like, hey, I feel like this is going to work, then let's do this. We don't do that. So everything is going to be based on data, based on fact evidence. So
love it. Well, Enpei, thank you for sharing. What time is it there?
It's 11:30 p.m.
What are you doing? I mean, thank you. Thank you. As a personal thank you, and thank you, on behalf of the community and those who will, take advantage and learn from your insights and ideas. I appreciate you making the effort, and I really hope you get to Hong Kong and see your mother, if I recall correctly, soon and safely. So really appreciate you, and hopefully we'll see you in person before too long. Don't know when that's going to be, but yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
How can people learn more about you, and how can people learn more about you and what you're up to?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I know that you can pop a little LinkedIn out, right? And my name is shown on the screen. So, and there are not too many Enpei on LinkedIn. So as soon as you type Enpei, I think my face will show up. So it'll be pretty easy.
Easy enough. All right, Enpei. Well, again, you be well. Thank you, and we'll talk soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Cheers. All right.